Emma Lewis had always been proud of her composure. People often said she was calm, reasonable, and balanced, the kind of woman who didn't let emotions cloud her judgment. She wore that image like armor. But deep down, beneath the polished surface, there was something heavy, something she hadn't spoken of in years, a silence that had grown roots inside her. It began 15 years earlier, in a small coastal town where everyone knew everyone. Emma was 22, full of ambition, and desperate to leave the place she called too small for her dreams. Her best friend, Hannah, couldn't have been more different, gentle, grounded, content with the simple things: coffee on the porch, walks by the sea, laughter that felt like sunlight. The two were inseparable until the day ambition met betrayal. Hannah had fallen in love first. His name was Ryan. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke, and who carried a camera everywhere he went. Emma liked him too, but she told herself she didn't. When Hannah introduced them, something inside Emma tightened. The way Ryan's eyes lit up when Hannah laughed. The way his voice softened when he said her name. It stirred envy that Emma didn't want to admit. For months, she told herself it was harmless, a passing crush, a flicker of jealousy. But that flicker grew. When Ryan started working at the small gallery where Emma interned, she spent long evenings helping him set up exhibits, talking about art and cities and the lives they wanted. She didn't plan for it to happen. One night, the line between friendship and something more blurred, and once crossed, it couldn't be uncrossed. The guilt was immediate. The next morning, Ryan looked at her with confusion and regret, whispering that they'd made a mistake. Emma nodded, her throat burning. "We'll never speak of it," she said. And they didn't. But silence never buries truth. It only delays its consequences. A month later, Hannah found out. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at Emma with eyes so calm they hurt more than any anger could. "You could have told me," she said quietly. "I would have forgiven you. If you just told me." Then she walked away, and that was the last time Emma saw her. That was 15 years ago. Emma left town soon after, chasing her career in the city, convincing herself that time would dull the edges of her guilt. She built a life, a good job, a modest apartment, and a circle of friends who knew nothing of the girl she used to be. To them, she was confident, successful, kind. But every time she saw someone with a camera or heard the sea in the distance, something inside her twisted. One evening, Emma's phone rang. It was her mother. "You should come home," she said. "It's Hannah." Emma froze. "What about her?" "She's not well," her mother whispered. "It's cancer. They say it's advanced." For the first time in years, Emma felt her carefully built world crack. She hadn't spoken Hannah's name out loud since the day she left. The thought of seeing her again, of facing what she had done, made her stomach tighten with shame. But that night, Emma didn't sleep. By morning, she packed a bag and drove back to the town she'd abandoned. The sea looked the same, calm, endless, indifferent. The streets were smaller than she remembered, the houses older, the people slower. She parked outside a small white house at the edge of town. A man was sitting on the porch, Ryan. His hair was gray now, his face lined, but his eyes were unmistakable. When he saw her, surprise flickered, followed by a cautious sadness. "She's inside," he said. "She doesn't have much strength these days." Emma's legs felt heavy as she walked up the steps. Inside, the air smelled of lavender and salt. Hannah was lying on the couch, pale but peaceful. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she just stared, as if trying to decide whether Emma was real. Then she smiled faintly. "You came." Emma's throat closed. I had to." They sat in silence for a while. The years between them stretched like an ocean. Finally, Hannah spoke. "I heard you did well in the city. I'm glad." Emma shook her head. "Don't say that. I don't deserve your kindness." "You don't owe me an apology," Hannah said softly. "Yes, I do," Emma whispered. "Every day, I've thought about what I did. How I hurt you. I told myself you hated me, and I didn't blame you. I would have hated me too." Hannah smiled, a weak, tired smile. "I did for a while. But hate is heavy, you know? It poisons the person who carries it. One day, I just let it go. I figured life would take care of the rest." Emma looked at her. "Life took care of you too soon." "Maybe," Hannah said. "But maybe that's how it's meant to be. You can't fix the past, Emma. But you can choose who you are now." That night, Emma stayed. They talked until Hannah fell asleep. Ryan made tea, and for the first time, Emma noticed how quiet he was. the kind of quiet that hides years of endurance. You stayed with her, Emma said. I promised I would, he replied simply. And I did. Emma nodded. There was nothing else to say. When morning came, Hannah was gone. The funeral was small, just a handful of people, a gray sky, and the sea whispering nearby. Emma stood apart, her hands trembling. As they lowered the coffin, a gust of wind swept through the trees, and she felt something lift inside her, a strange mix of grief and release. After everyone left, Ryan stayed by the grave. Emma walked up beside him. She forgave me, she said. I know, he replied. She forgave everyone. That's who she was. And you? Emma asked. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. I stopped trying to forgive myself a long time ago. Maybe you should too. Emma drove back to the city that evening, the sound of the sea still echoing in her ears. But something was different. For the first time in 15 years, she felt like she could breathe. Still, the story wasn't over. Because forgiveness isn't the end of karma. It's just the beginning of understanding it. The city felt different when Emma returned. The streets she used to rush through now seemed to move slower, as if time itself had softened. Yet, despite the noise of cars, the chatter of people, and the hum of everyday life, she couldn't shake the silence that Hannah had left behind. It was in the corners of her apartment, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the faces of strangers who unknowingly mirrored pieces of her past. She tried to go back to normal, to her work at the art gallery, to her morning coffee, to the illusion of control. But something had shifted. The things that used to matter, deadlines, exhibitions, promotions, now felt shallow. Every photograph, every piece of art she curated, seemed to whisper the same question: what will you leave behind when you're gone? One evening, Emma stayed late at the gallery. She stood before a large black and white photo, a woman standing on a shore, her back to the camera, the ocean stretching endlessly before her. There was something haunting about it, something painfully familiar. Beneath the image was a small plaque, untitled, by Ryan Collins. Her breath caught. It couldn't be. Ryan had never been one to chase recognition. Yet here his work was, hanging in the city's main gallery, part of a traveling exhibit she hadn't realized she'd helped schedule. She stepped closer, tracing the contours of the photograph with her eyes. The woman in the image was Hannah. Emma would have known her silhouette anywhere. The caption said the photo was taken 5 years ago, long after Emma had left town. She imagined Ryan standing there on that same beach, capturing a moment that wasn't just about the sea or the light, but about memory, forgiveness, and the unspoken weight between them all. She stood there for a long time. Visitors came and went, admiring the piece without knowing the story behind it. But Emma knew. It was like Hannah was still speaking, not in words, but in images, through the man who had loved her and through the woman who still carried her memory like a scar. That night, Emma walked home through the drizzle, the city lights blurred by rain. She couldn't stop thinking about Ryan, about how he'd said he stopped trying to forgive himself. She wondered if she'd done the same without realizing it. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a single act, but a daily choice, one she'd never made. When she got home, she poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window. Outside, life went on. People laughed, buses passed, a street musician played an old love song. Emma picked up her phone, scrolling aimlessly until she reached Ryan's name. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. She wasn't sure what she'd even say. After a long pause, she typed, "I saw your photo. It's beautiful." Then deleted it. Then typed again. "It made me think of her. Of us. I hope you're okay." And this time, she sent it. She didn't expect an answer. But an hour later, her phone buzzed. "Ryan, I didn't think you'd see it." It was from the last day she walked to the water. She said it was her way of saying goodbye. "Emma." She looked peaceful. "Ryan," she was. "She told me that day that she forgave you. I thought you should know she meant it." Emma's eyes filled. She already told me, she thought. But hearing it again, from him, felt like something sacred being repeated by fate itself. Then another message appeared. "Ryan, I'm actually coming to the city next week. The gallery invited me for a talk about the exhibit. Maybe we could meet." Emma hesitated, then typed back, "Yes, I'd like that." The day of the exhibit arrived. Emma stood in the back of the crowded hall as Ryan spoke on stage. He talked about light, memory, and capturing emotion through silence. How sometimes the things we don't photograph say more than the ones we do. His voice was steady, humble, almost meditative. When the session ended, people approached him with questions and praise. Emma waited until the crowd thinned before walking up that he smiled when he saw her. "You look well," he said. "So do you," she lied. He looked older, not just in years, but in the kind of way that happens when grief reshapes a person. They went for coffee after. Conversation came easier than she expected. They spoke of simple things: work, life, the absurdity of time. Then silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, yes, but real. "I've thought about that night," Ryan finally said. "For years. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not. I told myself I was the one who ruined everything. But truth is, we both did." Emma nodded. "We were young, selfish, and I was jealous. Not because of you, but because Hannah had a kind of peace I didn't. I wanted what she had, but I didn't know how to earn it." Ryan stared at his coffee. She understood that. That's why she forgave you. They sat quietly for a while. The city buzzed around them, indifferent. Then Emma said something she'd been afraid to admit. "I'm scared I'll never forgive myself. Every time I start to feel happy, I hear her voice. It's like part of me doesn't think I deserve peace." Ryan looked at her, his expression soft but steady. "Then make peace part of how you honor her. You can't change what happened, but you can live differently because of it." His words stayed with her. For weeks after, Emma began to change small things. She volunteered at a local art program for kids. She started taking morning walks by the river, letting herself breathe instead of rushing to fill silence. And slowly, something began to shift inside her. Not a grand transformation, but a quiet softening point. One day, while sorting through old storage boxes, she found an old envelope addressed in her own handwriting, "To open when you've forgiven yourself." She didn't remember writing it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a photo, the three of them, years ago, on the beach, laughing like the world was simple. Beneath it, a note: "If you're reading this, it means you're trying to heal. Don't forget that you were loved once, and that means you can be again." Emma pressed the note to her chest, tears spilling freely. She didn't know if she believed the words yet, but they felt like a promise. A few months later, Ryan invited her to join a small photography retreat he was hosting by the coast, the same coast they'd all grown up near. She almost said no, but something inside her, a mix of courage and nostalgia, said yes. When she arrived, the sea breeze hit her like memory. The cliffs, the smell of salt, the cries of gulls. It was as if nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Ryan greeted her with a calm smile. "It's been a long time since we were here," he said. "Feels like another life," Emma replied. They spent the weekend teaching young artists, sharing stories, and photographing sunsets. Emma found herself laughing again, genuinely, freely. On the final evening, as the group gathered by a bonfire, she walked down to the shore alone. The waves shimmered under the moonlight, and for a moment, she could almost hear Hannah's laugh carried on the wind. "I hope you're watching," she whispered. "I hope you know I'm trying." As she turned back toward the fire, Ryan stood there, camera in hand. "You always did look at the ocean like it was listening," he said. She smiled. "Maybe it is." He raised his camera. "May I?" Emma nodded. The shutter clicked. Once, softly. Later that night, they looked through the photos together. In one, Emma stood by the water, her face lit by firelight and moonlight alike. Strong, imperfect, human. For the first time, she didn't see the woman who'd betrayed a friend. She saw someone learning how to forgive herself, one breath at a time. Ryan looked at the photo for a long while before speaking. "You know, Hannah used to say that karma isn't about punishment. It's about balance. What we take, life eventually asks us to give back, not as pain, but as understanding." Emma smiled faintly. "Then maybe this is me giving back." He nodded. I think she'd be proud. For the first time in 15 years, Emma didn't argue with that idea. She let herself believe it. Months passed since the funeral, yet the echo of Sophia's voice still lingered in Michael's mind. Every word she had ever said, every argument, every laugh, played on a loop in the quiet corners of his house. The grief didn't fade. It only changed shape. Some days it was heavy and suffocating. Other days it was dull and constant, like a stone in his pocket. But amid that pain, something inside him had shifted. He no longer looked at the world the same way. The bitterness that once fueled his ambition was gone. He started noticing small things: the morning light through the window, the sound of children laughing outside, the kindness of strangers who held doors open without expecting anything in return. But he sold his company a year later. It shocked everyone: his colleagues, the media, his rivals. Why would he walk away? They asked. But he didn't care about public perception anymore. He wanted to live differently, to build something that mattered, something that healed instead of consumed. He used part of his fortune to open a small art center in the same city where he'd once built his empire. The center offered free workshops for children from poor neighborhoods: painting, writing, music, even basic business skills. It was named the Sophia Foundation. When he unveiled the sign on opening day, his hands trembled slightly. A photo of Sophia stood on a small table by the entrance, surrounded by wildflowers. For the first time in years, Michael smiled. Not out of pride, but out of peace. He spoke quietly to the audience. I spent much of my life chasing success and hurting people without realizing it. I thought power would bring happiness. But happiness isn't built on what we take, it's built on what we give. The applause was gentle, heartfelt. Yet what struck him most was a familiar face in the crowd. Emma, the woman he had betrayed decades ago. Time had softened her features, but her eyes were still sharp, kind. She approached him afterward, holding a small envelope. "I heard about what you're doing," she said. "It's good, Michael. Really good." He wanted to apologize again, to confess everything he hadn't yet said, but she stopped him with a raised hand. "You already have," she said softly, "by becoming who you are now." She handed him the envelope. Inside was a photograph of Sophia as a child, smiling, her arms covered in paint. "She gave this to me once," Emma said. "Said she wanted you to have it someday." Michael held the photo as if it were a piece of his soul returning home. His throat tightened. "Thank you," he whispered. Emma nodded and turned to leave, but before she did, she looked back. "We all make mistakes," she said. "But not everyone finds the courage to change. Don't waste that gift." Years later, Michael became a mentor to others: young entrepreneurs, artists, even people who had lost their way in life. He never preached, never claimed to have all the answers. He simply listened and shared his story, the story of how he'd lost everything that mattered, only to discover that love, forgiveness, and integrity were worth more than any empire. One of his students, a shy boy named Daniel, reminded him of himself at that age: ambitious but uncertain, full of questions about success and worth. One day, Daniel asked, "Do you ever regret it? The things you did? The mistakes?" Michael paused, staring at the sunset through the art center's window. "Every day," he admitted. "But I've learned that regret is just a shadow. You can't erase it, but you can walk forward with it beside you, instead of letting it lead." The boy nodded slowly, the wisdom sinking in. When Michael turned 70, the foundation celebrated its 20th anniversary. The hall was filled with laughter, art, and music, things that had once seemed meaningless to him, but now defined his world. Many of Sophia's former students had returned as adults, successful in their own right. One of them, a young woman with fiery red hair, took the stage to speak. "When I was a kid, I had nothing," she said. "But this place gave me hope. It gave me purpose. And it taught me that one person's kindness can change another person's entire life." Michael watched from the front row, tears forming in his eyes. It was Sophia's legacy, alive and thriving. Her compassion, her belief in second chances, had become his purpose. After the event, as the guests left and the hall emptied, Michael stood alone under the soft glow of the lights. He walked to the small table where Sophia's photo still rested. The edges were worn from years of touch. He whispered, "You were right, my love. We can't undo the past, but we can honor it by living better." Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall. The city lights shimmered through the white haze. It was peaceful, almost sacred. Michael stepped outside, letting the cold air fill his lungs. He looked up at the sky, the snow melting on his face. And for a fleeting moment, he felt her presence, gentle, forgiving, eternal. He smiled. In the months that followed, he wrote a letter, one he knew no one might ever read. He called it "The Weight of Redemption." To anyone who has ever broken something beautiful and thought it could never be fixed, you're wrong. The cracks in your soul don't make you weak. They make you human. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what you've done. It's about choosing to grow despite it. Life will test you, strip you, and humble you. But it will also offer you chances to rebuild. Don't turn away from those chances. Don't let pride steal your peace. What goes around comes around. But so does kindness, love, and redemption. Be brave enough to start again. That he left the letter in the foundation office, tucked inside Sophia's favorite book. It was a quiet message to the future, to remind others that even in the aftermath of pain, beauty could bloom. Years later, long after Michael was gone, the foundation still stood. Children still painted on the same walls he had once built. And on the wall behind the main stage, a quote was painted in bold letters. "What you give to the world is what remains of you." It became the motto of the Sophia Foundation, a truth passed down through generations, a truth born from one man's mistakes and his journey to make them right.